From the director of Sicario, Arrival, and also these, comes Blade Runner 2049, a visual and storytelling masterpiece that succeeds the original Blade Runner in many ways. It is a film that is a masterpiece of collaboration, fixing the flaws of the original film to create a collaborative spectacle of visuals, storytelling, acting, music, and everything in between. To give my opinion on the original, I was not impressed with it. While the original itself had fantastic visual design work that stood the test of time, there were many issues that took me out of the film. However, I was delighted by Vangelis' soundtrack and superb acting of Rutger Hauer. I'm more of a RoboCop guy than a Blade Runner guy, and I think that Blade Runner 2049 succeeds in parts where the original didn't. It succeeds in doing what the original failed to do, and it succeeds in doing what the original tried to do. The best decision Ridley Scott has ever made in his career was to give the directing for this film to a fantastic director, Denis Villeneuve. Villeneuve has shown in his entire filmography that he is able to combine atmosphere, acting, cinematography, and music into a living organism that gives an emotional response to the viewer. We've known that Ridley Scott has gone off his rocker in the last few years, and from watching this film, I am glad that Ridley Scott was not directing it. It was pure dumb luck that Ridley Scott gave the reins of this film to Villeneuve, and instead of giving the screenplay to some hack, he brought back Hampton Fancher to write the sequel, and the result is a wonderful follow-up to the original that uplifts the original in every way. Ryan Gosling remains one of the best actors of the 21st century, and he playing the main character of Kay, aka Joe, lives up to the hype. It kind of seems that the character is basically the replicate version of the main character from Drive, and there's more to Gosling's character than that. He's playing a character that stays true to the Philip K. Dick tradition and Hampton Fancher's themes throughout the entire world-building aspect of the Blade Runner universe. This is the third time Harrison Ford has returned to one of his old franchises, and just like The Force Awakens, it's great to see how much Harrison Ford gives a shit in the film. It's nice to see that Harrison Ford plays the same character but with more care and attention to charisma and acting than Ford was in the original. Remember how much Ford's inability to properly work with Scott and Sean Young affected his acting in the original Blade Runner. But with Gosling and Villeneuve in the helm, it seems that he's able to shine as Deckard where the original couldn't. Other than Gosling and Ford, Jared Leto provides a worthy villainous character in Wallace that truly utilized Leto's acting method to its fullest. Unlike Leto in Suicide Squad, Leto in Blade Runner 2049 is the true definition of method acting. You feel like you're watching a great villain in a great film, a wonderful follow-up to the original's Alden Terrell. In keeping up with the Villeneuvian tradition, Blade Runner 2049 provides some of the best female characters in a modern film. Cuban actress Ana de Armas plays the beautiful Joy, an AI creature who basically is your own personal waifu in the vein of Hatsune Miku. She's surprisingly the most human character from the start of the film, giving Joe the ability to feel more human than what was designed for. Lauren Hoeks from the Netherlands plays Love, a mix of Rachel's design and looks with the agility of both Priest and Roy Batty from the original. She is somewhat of the anti-Joe, who serves Wallace with the loyalty that is reserved for the best of the best replicants, and provides an excellent contrast to Kate's search for belonging in this world. Robin Wright continues her best year in acting with the role as Lieutenant Joshi, Joe's boss. This is her third best acting gig for the year after House of Cards and Wonder Woman. Mackenzie Davis continues being excellent in her growing filmography. She also played a replicant prostitute in this film. And also, Swiss actress Kala Yuri plays Dr. Anna Stelline, who helped Joe with his investigation. The music here is excellent, though not by Vangelis. The score continued echoing the cyberpunk feel of the original. Johan Johansson unfortunately left halfway through production, leaving Hans Zimmer to bear the composing work for the film. But he brought his own touch, inspired by his own work in Inception, adding a sense of tension rarely felt in the original, and it worked to the film's credit. Bridging both Johansen and Zimmer together is Benjamin Wallfisch, who helped transition both Johansen and Zimmer's composition together into one beautiful score for this film. The film makes the practical effects of the original with modern CGI effects to create a well-realized world 30 years after the original. Practical effects were essential to the original film's design of Los Angeles, and the tradition continued with beautiful depictions of LA's skyline built with practical work, but with the addition of CGI to help smoothen the film's effects. If you've seen the original and the director's cuts of the original Blade Runner, the use of wire work was a bit noticeable, but that's why CGI was used in the final cut to remove the obvious wires. CGI works great to lessen the obvious flaws of practical effects, and like films like Mad Max Fury Road and The Force Awakens, Blade Runner 2049 is proof that the marriage of both CGI and practical effects is a workable combo in comparison to full CGI work like Warcraft and the Star Wars prequels. Ever since Blade Runner's release, we've seen a string of successful and unsuccessful cyberpunk films, games, and anime. Strange Days, Johnny Enema, The Matrix, Looper, Ghost in the Shell, Deus Ex, Dark City, Ergo Proxy, Technolize, Lane, and so much more, so it seemed difficult for Blade Runner 2049 to differentiate itself from not only the original, but also the other cyberpunk properties, and Blade Runner 49 managed to succeed in being an original cyberpunk film, showing something that is different from all the other cyberpunk pop culture we've been exposed to since the release of the original Blade Runner. The original Blade Runner sees the rise of Japan in our world as an economic corporate power, evidently seen by Deckard eating sushi, Japanese-style advertising, and the use of city-speak by Gaff, which is a mixture of mainly Japanese, English, and other languages. 35 years later, our world has seen the rise of countries like Korea, China, India, and Russia competing with Japan, and thus this film adapts to that reality, which kind of fits the timeline. The cityscape is filled with not only Japanese billboards but also Korean and Chinese. Russian hologram ads are everywhere, and there are signs in Hindi throughout the film. There are also characters who speak Somali, and there are ads for French and German products throughout the film. The film also adapts to our current political environment, even without pandering to us about it. The usage of drones as both a surveillance and military item are maintained in this film. One of the main characters works for Wallace's GMO food division. Replicants are, after the events of 2022, are the subject to discrimination similar to that of many minority groups throughout the world. Hell, Joy reminds me of the Gatebox virtual speaker, which is basically a hologram Alexa with a waifu anime figure. Denis Villeneuve knows how to frame socio-political and cultural issues without making it too preachy, as evident throughout his previous films like Incendies, Sicario, and Arrival. And I think that he does that well in this film too, to the point where it's believable to a certain degree. Speaking of waifus, Ryan Gosling's relationship with Joy reminds me of Lars in The Real Girl, where Ryan Gosling plays a guy who falls in love with a blow-up doll. Does Ryan Gosling have a thing for waifus? I mean, I need to know what kind of anime he watches in real life. But anyway, the question still stands. Is this one of the best sequels ever made? Yeah, I guess. I put it on par with Empire Strikes Back and Mad Max Fury Road. I love Blade Runner 2049, and I can't wait to see it again. And maybe you should too. Seriously, go and watch Blade Runner 2049. It's now out of the box office, so wait for Blu-ray and 4K streaming releases. In the age of Bumblebee Kills Hitler, Terminator Genitals, and Alien Covenant, I hope to finish that review one day. Those movies making so much money, This film is the type of sequel that could have deserved your wallet. But even with the lack of box office success, you can still support this film and support Denis Villeneuve. And maybe, just maybe, this film's cult success and good Rotten Tomato scores will convince Ridley Scott to give his upcoming Alien film to other directors instead of himself. Seriously, go watch Blade Runner 2049, please. Watch it on Netflix or wait for a Blu-ray release. I guarantee you will love it.